First story is titled, Am I the a-hole for telling my brother and sister-in-law to find alternate childcare? My 41 female, brother 39 male, and sister-in-law have 2 kids, 7-year-old and 5-year-old, while my husband and I are child-free by choice. I have no issues with kids. I just didn't want my own, and my husband and I enjoy a life where we're the fun aunt and uncle rather than parents. My husband and I have zero issue with taking my niece and nephew for a night or two to give my brother and sister-in-law a break, but we enjoy our peace and quiet, so we try not to do this all the time. My brother has had cutbacks at his company, so my sister-in-law started working part-time to help with some of the bills. My niece and nephew are going to school online for obvious reasons, so they need help with childcare. My brother asked if I would be willing to watch them during the day since my husband and I both work from home, and we agreed with the promise that it would be temporary until they could find other childcare arrangements. That was 4 months ago. I have a massive trial coming up and have been working between 7 to 80 hours per week to prepare. I spoke with my brother and sister-in-law multiple times and informed them that I cannot continue overseeing my niece and nephew's schooling and working, and they really need to find someone else to watch them because it is just too much for me to handle at the moment. It came to a head yesterday when I had an important client meeting, and my niece and nephew started arguing over a TV remote. My husband was in a work call and could not take care of it, so I had to get up in the middle of a meeting to handle it. When my sister-in-law came to pick them up, I informed her that they have 2 weeks to find childcare because I cannot watch them anymore. I told her that it was affecting my job performance, and it was not fair for them to put me in this position. My sister-in-law called me selfish and said I was uncaring. My brother called me and told me that I have no compassion for what they're going through and that he needs my help. I told him that if it was financial, I am more than willing to chip in for a nanny or a pair to watch them during the day for their schooling, but that just made him angrier. He accused me of flaunting my wealth. Now my sister-in-law put in her 2 weeks' notice at her job, and my brother is blaming me and saying it's my fault if they end up homeless. Am I the a-hole for telling them they need to find new childcare? Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. You are under no obligation to care for their child given how busy you are, and they are so rude that even when offered to pay for a nanny that was flaunting your wealth. Not the a-hole under no obligation to care for their children. It does not matter if you are busy or not. They are not your obligation. This infuriates me. Anyone who has had kids school at home while they try to work knows how impossible it is. This is an enormous favor you've done for them. And while you're trying to work 80-hour weeks and taking client meetings for 4 months. Wow. For them to blame you for anything is outrageously entitled and unappreciative. People seem to not understand the work part of work from home. They think people have time that they just don't have. In the end, work and kids suffer because neither get the attention they deserve. Not the a-hole. Your brother and sister-in-law, however, are the a-holes. They sound like a bunch of freeloaders. And sister-in-law quit her work instead of finding someone else. Overdramatic. Feel sorry for the kids. Yeah, it sounds like she cut off her nose to spite her face. Like she's trying to prove to Opie that she is responsible for this. Opie's definitely not responsible, of course. Not the a-hole. Them telling you are selfish for not taking care of their children is laughable. Their projection of their issues on other things should not be your concern. Your own well-being and future are top priority, and I'd say stick with your decision. You did the right thing. Props for giving them a 2 weeks notice for that matter. Now for the next story. Am I the a-hole for no longer allowing my sister to work in my daycare after what she did? Hi, I'm a 32-year-old widow. Have been for 3 years. I struggled a lot financially. I didn't get help from my family because they claim they can't. So I decided to start a home daycare. It's been open for 7 months now. My friend was able to get me more clients via Facebook. Thank goodness my business is growing. And I've made quite a lot of friends who are moms, and also established good reputation since my daycare has been recommended. My sister, 26, is unemployed. Didn't find a job yet and had rent to pay for her and her boyfriend. My parents suggested I let her come work with me at my daycare, and accepted since she has experience in the past. I agreed to let her come and earn her living. She got along with the other workers and things were going fine. Until she came to me asking about a specific child that comes to our daycare. He's 4, very well behaved for his age. I was confused after she complained about him. She said she saw his dad come over to pick him up and didn't feel comfortable when she saw him because he's a police officer, and she had an unpleasant incident with the police because of something her boyfriend did that she needed therapy for and struggled a lot from. She wanted me to let the child go and tell the parent to look for another daycare. He usually arrives at 3 p.m. to pick the kid up. From what I understand, his wife is sick. I refused. I have no good reason to let the child go. My sister refused to drop it and started being mean to the dad. It was unprofessional of her. I told her she either be respectful or I won't have her work with me anymore. 2 days ago, she sent an email to the dad telling him we won't be welcoming his kid at the daycare anymore. He came to talk to me, and I was livid when I saw the email. He asked why and talked about his kid wanting to stay because he's friends with other kids. Talked about not being able to find a daycare closer than ours. I lashed out at my sister, and I told her she's no longer able to work at the daycare because of her behavior. We got into an argument, and she left after saying I was being unsupportive and inconsiderate. My parents called me saying I shouldn't have kicked my sister out, and now causing her to lose her apartment. They argued I have no regard for my sister's trauma, and I should have let the child go and support her because she's my sister. Everyone shamed me and claimed I had messed up priorities. I felt I was in the wrong for letting her struggle now without a job, but I have no reason to let go of the child as well. He wears a uniform. My aunt suggested that I ask him to get someone else to come and pick up his kid, or at least I'll let her leave before 3 p.m. and arrive a bit late in the morning, but others would notice the difference in treatment at the daycare. I understand that there are parents struggling and I do all I can to help out and be supportive. Yes, she's my younger sister, but treating people like that was unprofessional of her. One thing to clarify, my sister's boyfriend is in no contact with my family due to issues. However, they said they want to support my sister and be in contact with her and support her, although they don't have a relationship with her boyfriend. That's why they keep pressuring me to help and support her. Not the a-hole. You could have lost the whole business because of what she did, and you gave her plenty of warning. Even if she needed therapy, she was still being beyond unreasonable. She could have excused herself for a break at the time the cop came to come to his kid, and she'd have never needed to see him. But instead, she went behind your back and went against your explicit instructions. She got exactly what she deserves. The fact that she had the nerve to send an email as if she had any authority. She is not an owner or partner, and she way overstepped her position. If any other employee pulled this stunt, they would have been fired too. She is not exempt just because she's your sister. From someone who strongly believes in police abolition, you are not the a-hole. While maybe your sister would not be the best person to interact directly with this particular dad, she's putting her own issues on a kid for what she believes, correctly or not, are the sins of the father. There is no reason for her to have anything against a child, or to want to set care on the basis of her feelings towards the father's profession. Right? I'm like, I wouldn't be best friends with the father, but holy hell is the sister whack. Not the a-hole. She unilaterally made a decision about your business. If this person wasn't your sister, there'd be no argument from anyone she should be fired. Unfortunately for your sister, this is the consequence of her actions. If you're this dependent on a job for your financial stability, you don't pull this stupid crap like this. Next story is titled, Am I the a-hole for causing my family to miss my brother's wedding? My wife and I just lost our second baby. Our first was a stillbirth. Our daughter lived for only a month due to a medical condition. We didn't get to take her home, but we have a few pictures of her before she passed away 3 weeks ago. It's difficult trying to get used to living like that, but we have no choice. My wife and I missed out on some family events, including my brother's wedding. Everyone was being considerate and gave us enough space to regain strength. I work long hours and night shifts while my wife stays at home. I was on shift the day of my brother's wedding. A few days ago, my mom and my sister were complaining about my brother's fiance's no-child rule, and they wanted someone to watch the kids for a few hours. My sister suggested that we do that, but I told her I had work and my wife wasn't up to it. And I really thought that was the end of the discussion. On the day of the wedding, I left home for work at 3. I got a call from my wife at 5 telling me my cousin just came and dropped 6 kids from my family at our house and told her that he'd come back to pick them up later. I was freaking livid. I went home and I started calling my sister, cousin, and sister-in-law to come pick their kids right then. They kept stalling, but I demanded they tell my cousin to turn around and come pick the kids up. Instead, they started showing up one by one, taking their kids, cussing me out, claiming I was overreacting since my wife didn't say anything. My wife doesn't know how to say no, so it's on me to set boundaries, although it's hard with them calling me the problem. My parents said I caused the family to miss most of my brother's wedding by looking for someone else to watch the kids, and basically blamed me for refusing to take the kids for just a few hours, saying I don't understand because I don't have kids. I don't know how hard it is. That line cut too deep. I've already had 2 kids that I lost. Everyone's arguing with me for causing them this issue on the wedding, and said I ruined it instead of doing this one little favor. I sent a mass text telling them they can start blaming each other instead of us after I told them we couldn't watch the kids. Now they won't even want to see me. Was I the a-hole for what I did? Now for the top comments. Holy cow, not an a-hole. I don't understand how you would possibly think you are. You clearly told them no. They smashed your boundaries, refused to listen, and dumped their kids. When you rightfully insisted they come to get them, they started doubling down and throwing barbed statements. Your family's undoubtedly selfish, petty, and terrible. Don't feel bad for what you did. Just because they're blood doesn't mean they aren't capable of being awful. This, 1000% this, was typing a similar reply, but there's no need to. Also, I am so sorry for you and your wife's losses. Not an a-hole. You're still a father. Your children just aren't here with you on this plane of existence. Your family shouldn't rely on you to take their kids when you've said your wife isn't up to it, which is totally understandable all things considered, and you had been working. It was absolutely inappropriate of them to think you would even want to take their kids. As for your family, you are not a babysitting service. You are grieving the loss of a child, a hurt that will never truly go away. It is a pain they won't feel unless it happens to them, and a pin I know you wouldn't wish on them. They do not understand that things like this can be harmful to you and your very obviously grieving wife. They are the a-hole, not you or your wife. Thanks for responding, and you're right about what you said here. The lack of respect and consideration they have for me and my wife is awful. They have no regard for us and keep trying to blame me for what happened. Not an a-hole, but your family is effing full of them. My God. Sending my deepest condolences to you and your wife. Exactly not an a-hole. They ruined their wedding experience by not booking a babysitter for their kids when they knew you could not watch them. They have no one to blame but themselves for being idiotic. Now for the last story. Am I the a-hole for not going to family events because I never get a fair vote in what we do? I, 24 male, have 3 sisters. We always did what they wanted to do growing up. They were in the majority, but it never really bothered me. I would just stay home when they went out. I finally moved out about 2 years ago. COVID came and we haven't seen each other in a long time. They were all planning on meeting up when restrictions lightened up. We all threw ideas on what to do, but all my ideas were shut down. They finally agreed on a wine tasting restaurant. It's basically a place where you just taste wine. I don't like wine and tried to choose a different place. I was shut down because we all voted on it. I told them I'm not paying for something I don't want to do. I would skip this one, but I would go to the next family outing if we all agreed on it. They didn't take this lightly and started an argument about me being an a-hole for always skipping events and never going with the family. I tried to tell them to choose something we can all do and not something you guys want to do. At this point, I'm done talking about it. I just stopped responding to them about it. Now I'm having second thoughts on if I should just go. Am I the a-hole for almost never going to family events and skipping this one as well? Not the a-hole. This like me getting upset my vegetarian mother doesn't want to join us to a barbecue restaurant where only the corn is meat-free. Imagine all the fun you'd have had, sitting there with a glass of water and watching your family drink and talk only about wine. How dare you not join them? Majority rules is fine if you're a child and not paying. But as an adult, you shouldn't have to pay to go do something you have absolutely no interest in doing. I don't drink, so I would never do this even if the point is to taste and spit it out. Gonna go with not at a-hole because they decided to berate you for simply not wanting to go and trying to use the but family excuse. Yep, majority rules just means the same person/group is left out every time. Maybe OP could suggest taking turns picking the outing? Also, majority rule sucks for kids too. It is mainly just an excuse to exclude and bully. Not at A-Hall. They specifically chose something you don't like, and then berated you because you don't want to pay money to do it. Seems really unfair. If I were you and you really want to see them but always get outvoted, maybe plan something you want to do and don't give them a choice. Just say, hey, I'd really like to spend some time together. I've planned a game night at my place on this day. Hope you can make it. If the date doesn't work for everyone, let's figure out a better day. If they argue about what you've planned, just say, that's fine, you don't have to come. I just wanted to plan something I like for a change, and I really wanted to see you. If they don't come, or they pitch a fit, then I'd stop trying. First story is titled, Am I the A-Hole for not letting them plan a birth in my tub? I, 28 male, own my own place and suffer extreme pain in my back and my right leg. I bought and had installed essentially jacuzzi in my master bedroom as a tool to help relax and use it regularly. My brother and his wife were pregnant and asked if they could use it because they wanted to do a water birth. No idea if that's what it's called, but they have no bathtub in their place and asked to use my jacuzzi, saying they'll clean it out. To be honest, I know it's the miracle of life, but it makes me so uncomfortable to think of birth in my relaxation tub. I told them absolutely not, and they were furious, saying that it's selfish to deny her this. She went into labor yesterday, and they called to ask if they could come over and use it, and I told them again, no, and turned my ringer off. She gave birth at the hospital and demanded I need to pay half the bill that she'll get, but I just told them to screw off. They're now both calling me the A-Hole, and so are our parents who live over the other end of the country. Am I the A-Hole? Now for the top judgment. Did you make half the baby? No? Then there's no reason for you to pay half the bill. Some people. Not the A-Hole. Nobody's entitled to your things, not even when pregnant or giving birth. I wish I could upvote this more than once. And the jets are impossible to clean. I have given birth. It's messy. And good for you for not allowing them to use your tub with jets. Ew. It really kills the relaxation vibe when blood, feces, amniotic fluid, and assorted after-birth particles congeal in your pipes. Not a hole. The miracle of life is a miracle, but it's also not at all sanitary. I can't even imagine trying to get all of the pipes clean after something like that. It sounds like you very clearly told them no, and they didn't listen and didn't make other plans. That's on them, not you. You were not responsible for any bills. How entitled. I can't even imagine trying to get all of the pipes clean after something like that. I had the same thought. Even with just water, if you don't blow the air tubes out, it's mold city. Not a hole. You do not want a birth going on in your jacuzzi tub. I had a home water birth, and trust me, they get messy. A jacuzzi tub isn't even suitable for a birth. They're too hot for one, and not deep enough for another. Tell them to buy or rent a birthing pool like the rest of us. Exactly. A jacuzzi is the wrong sort of tub. Could have set sister-in-law and the baby up for a nasty infection. What is fine if you have intact skin is not when everything is open up in a birthing situation. Sister-in-law is straight up wrong. And this doesn't even get into OP not wanting to contaminate her tub with that much blood and bodily fluids. Not a hole, and wow. Now for the next story. Am I the a-hole for not getting over my sister-in-law calling child services? There's a lot of details I could go into, but I'll try to keep it brief. I, 34 female, cut my sister-in-law, 34 female, out of my life and my kid's life after she called Child Protective Services on me and my husband, 35 male. She made certain accusations against my husband and I, and told them that my house was gross. None of it was true, and DCFS went on their merry way after briefly investigating us. She admitted calling. She didn't even apologize, and said she'd made the right call. I told her she should have at least asked us why our baby was so small, for example, but she said we would have just lied to her because we had previously lied about my oldest child being conceived before we were married. I told her I never wanted to talk to her again, and that she was never going to see my kids again. My husband's family all told her she made a bad call to not at least ask us, or even them if she thought we'd lie about the things she claims she noticed. Sister-in-law doubled down, and the whole family wrote it off as her just needing to cause a drama. Unfortunately, at our expense. I haven't talked to her since. She asked me to coffee a few times over the years, and I said no. My husband mostly stayed no contact with her as well, but did get lunch with her once, during which she defended herself and told him how dramatic and ridiculous I was being. Husband, kids, and I moved across the country, and it hasn't really come up in like 6 years. Being accused of such things by a family member gave me some lasting anxiety, and I panic if someone comes over and the house is messy or the kids have a cut or bruise. But I don't, like, sit and stew about how awful my sister-in-law is or anything. It's been several years now. The baby in the store is now 10, and my mother-in-law just moved in with us. She video chats with my sister-in-law, and I requested that she keep the video chats to her own bedroom and not carry her phone around the house, give sister-in-law our address, or pull my children into the calls to say hello. My husband doesn't feel like this is necessary, but understands the boundary I've drawn here and backs me up. Mother-in-law keeps pulling my kids in to say hello to their cousin, my sister-in-law's child, despite being asked not to. Mother-in-law says I'm being ridiculous, holding on to this grudge for so long, and that I really need to let it go and let my sister-in-law back into my husband's life. I've never told my husband he can't talk to his own sister. I will not talk to her, and I don't want her near the kids, but he can do whatever he wants. She doesn't ask to video chat with him, so I don't know why my mother-in-law tried to frame it that way. I think it's possible I'm the a-hole for not breaking my zero contact resolution, just because it's been so long. But she hasn't changed personality-wise at all, and I don't think it's unlikely she'd pull that stuff again, just for the drama factor. Mother-in-law insists she's changed, and I need to give her another chance. Am I the a-hole for not getting over it? Edit. Because this has come up a lot. I do not mind if my children get to know their cousin. The problem is that the video chat is never just the kids. My sister-in-law is always there, facilitating the interaction because her kid is 5, and just as likely to hang up or drop the phone in the toilet as she is likely to chat. When the kiddo gets bored after a minute or two, she hands the phone to my sister-in-law, who then chats with my kids. That's the part I'm not okay with. They can talk to their cousin, but my sister-in-law ruins it every time, and therefore they can't really talk to their cousin. If I didn't feel like video chatting with her cousin put our family in legitimate danger, I would not object. I have no desire to punish a 5-year-old because her mother is Satan's bride. Not the a-hole. Ask mother-in-law if she would like the zero contact expanded to include her as well. She can't be allowed to keep pushing without consequences. I'm honestly so confused here though. Why did a sister call CPS? Is it a thing to call CPS when the child is small? What was the actual truth about the baby? Was it some health issues? I feel like there are so many gaps in the story. It sounds so vague. It's like Opie talked about everything around the plot, except the plot itself. I'm not trying to be nosy here, but could someone explain it to me? Am I missing out on something? Not an a-hole. The way I see it is mother-in-law has 2 options. 1, respect your boundaries. 2, move out. Mother-in-law can move in with sister-in-law, not the a-hole. She should have at least asked us why our baby was so small. What? Why should CPS get involved when a child is small? Anyway, you have a reasonable line since what sister-in-law pulled could have gotten your family in a lot of trouble. She clearly likes to cause drama, and you and your husband made a joint decision to cut her out. It doesn't really matter what your mother-in-law thinks of your boundary, but my husband doesn't feel like this is necessary. Have a talk with your husband about this, why he wants to move the line he and you set together. After clearing things with him, present a united front to your mother-in-law and tell her of your decision and ask her to respect it. If she doesn't and keeps violating your boundaries, then kick her out. She accused us of starving the baby, among other horrible accusations. The baby was 4 months old and really was worrying small. We were at the pediatrician 2 to 3 times a week. We were syringe feeding her, having breast milk shipped to us from another state. It was a nightmare. And having DCFS up our butts when I was trying to keep my baby from being hospitalized because she refused to take a bottle was not what I needed. But yes, everyone was concerned about the baby, and a call to DCFS would have been legit if we weren't doing anything about her smallness. Had she asked us about the welfare of the baby, we could have explained. But she reported us instead. My husband told me that he doesn't think it's necessary to set this boundary with his mother's video chats. He always respected my request that his sister not to be allowed around the kids, but I don't think he ever liked it. He wants his sister not to be a jerk, but also recognizes the reality. The next story is titled, Am I the a-hole for evicting my late son's girlfriend from my house? My late son, 43 male, and I were estranged for a very long time, probably around the time he was 25, greatly in parts because of his on-again, off-again drinking problems. Around 2 years ago, we reconnected. Alcoholism had ravaged his life and his body, and he had been out of work for close to 8 years. His girlfriend, 45 female, and him had 3 daughters, 10, 8, 3, that he never told me about. But the store she was a manager at closed, so she was now out of work too. They were going to get married, but he couldn't afford a ring. They were soon evicted from their apartment and had no place to go. I have a house that I bought in cash 5 years prior, so I let them move into it around a year ago. They offered to pay rent, but after the first 2 months, they said they were swamped with medical bills for my son and still paying their eldest daughter's hospital bills for childhood leukemia. Around that time, my son confessed that he had advanced liver cirrhosis. I tried to get his girlfriend to get him to stop drinking. She would yell at me and sit down and cry when my son was in the middle of vomiting black bile with his entire body so yellow. She'd ramble on about how she spent 20 years with him and cannot stop hoping that he'll pull through and they'd get married and be a happy family. I had to stop visiting after that, mostly because soon after their eldest hysterically called me and said her dad didn't recognize her anymore, and I realized his mind had gone. My son finally died of cirrhosis 2 months ago. His girlfriend started wailing in the hospital and saying a lot of mean things to me and about my son in general, saying she wasted her youth with him and who was going to love her now. The house was falling into disarray as his girlfriend did nothing but cook for her kids and stare aimlessly at job postings. She's cold to me every time I come in, and the kids would be as well. While I feel for her, I always thought my son moving in was a temporary situation, and that's what he agreed to as well. I was thinking of putting the house up for sale for a while now, and in the meantime, my girlfriend's twin brother needed a place to stay when he starts his MBA in the fall. He was a property manager in college, so we agreed to get in an optimal condition for buyers. When I had my lawyer send notice to her that I needed her to move out, she called and said that she could not believe I was being so cruel to a single mom. It's been a month, and when I gave her the chance to move again, she said to have some heart and hung up even though she can't pay rent. I had my lawyers file an eviction complaint and had her served a couple days ago. She called me screeching about how I was a bastard for trying to make room for my girlfriend's twin and sobbed, saying where would she go with 2 evictions on her record? Am I the a-hole? She's 45 years old and not my responsibility. Now for the top comments. This is a rough situation. And first, I am sorry for your loss. His girlfriend started wailing in the hospital and saying a lot of mean things to me and about my son in general, saying she wasted her youth with him and who was going to love her now. She chose to stay with your son for 20 years knowing he was an alcoholic. She knowingly put herself into this situation by not seeking help or leaving during that time. I think this really sucks, but mostly for your granddaughters. It doesn't seem like you even acknowledge them as part of your family, referring to them as her kids. They are your son's kids too. I'm going to go with everyone sucks here. It's horrible your son died and left your grandkids without a father. It sucks that his girlfriend is struggling to care for them and is being rude and obnoxious instead of being proactive. And it sucks that you, after writing your son off years ago, are not able to realize you have an opportunity to help your family still, because you don't acknowledge them because of issues their father had. Everyone sucks here seems like the most reasonable answer here. It sounds like the son and girlfriend were dodging responsibility, covering up and making excuses for a long time. Meanwhile, letting their kids grow up in a household with a severe alcoholic. I've seen what addicts can do to children, and I also know that you can't force an addict into treatment until they want to go, as one other commenter said. Still, I fault OP for being so callous and detached after his son passed, and for leaving the kids in such a situation. I mean, his oldest granddaughter called freaking out that her father couldn't even recognize her, and OP's response was to quit visiting. He was probably the most stable person in those kids' lives, and he just noped out when the situation got too bad. You're not just evicting his girlfriend, though. You're evicting his 3 children, your grandchildren. If you're fine making your grandkids homeless, I guess that's your choice, but it's a pretty damn harsh one. I had to stop visiting after that, mostly because soon after their eldest hysterically called me and said her dad didn't recognize her anymore, and I realized his mind had gone. Doesn't this mean you should have visited more to support your grandchildren? Your oldest grandkid has leukemia. How is she going to stay in treatment if she's homeless? You can legally do whatever you want, but I think you're the a-hole. 2 months? The ink isn't even dry on his death certificate, and you're kicking out his wife and children. I hope you don't like those kids, because I can guarantee that if you do this, they might never talk to you again. Now for the last story. Am I the a-hole for telling my husband that his own behavior is why our son doesn't show him physical affection, and I won't force him to? My husband and I have a 6-year-old son, Sam. Sam is super affectionate to me because I am super affectionate to him. For practically his whole life, we've had cuddle time every night. I tuck him in and give him hugs and kisses. I put him on the bus in the morning and kiss him goodbye. And when he doesn't feel good, I let him curl up with me on the couch and hold my hand. So it's not uncommon for him to randomly tell me he loves me, or come plant a kiss on my forehead while I'm just sitting down. This is just how we've always been with each other. By contrast, my husband isn't a very touchy-feely person, and therefore, our son doesn't show him the same affection. Don't get me wrong, my husband is a great father and Sam loves him. But he shows his love with tickles and wrestling, and Sam climbs all over him like a human jungle gym. That's their kind of love. Today, Sam wasn't feeling well, so I kept him home from school and we cuddled. When my husband came home, he kept trying to cuddle with Sam as well, but he only wanted me. This made my husband feel bad, understandably, and said that it looks like Sam loves me more than him. I told him that's not true at all, but that kids simulate the behavior that they experience. And since husband isn't affectionate most of the time, there are definitely some times where he is. Sam isn't affectionate back because he doesn't associate that behavior with his father. I told him that Sam shows him love when they goof off with each other. My husband said that I'm making him sound like he's a bad father, and that I should force Sam to give him hugs and kisses. But I refused, because I think Sam has the right to choose who he is physically affectionate with. He apparently vented to his mom and sister, who have both taken his side. So Reddit, am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. I suspect, based on your post, that I'm old enough to be that man's mother. So pass this on to him from me if you think it will help. Your son was not put on this earth to make you look good. You were put on this earth to raise him and care for him. If you screw up doing that, you own it. It's not a little boy's job to duct tape his daddy's best dad ever poster. Your son was not put on this earth to make you feel good. Taking care of your feelings is not his job. You are the grown up. You don't like that you get what you give? Suck it up. You screwed up. The next time your son looks like he just needs company, offer him company. Just hanging out, doing stuff together. Accept it if he says no. Don't try to put your hurt fifis on him. If he falls down and skins his knee while he's with you, ask him if he wants a hug. Again, accept no. Do little, kind things for him like that, and he may grow to understand that dad also can be a source of mutual affection. Or you may have already set a pattern of your interactions for the rest of your lives. And if that is how it is, you live with it. And stop whining to your mommy about it. Good grief. Signed, somebody who knows firsthand what happens when grown adults try to make their little kids take care of their outed fifis. Not the a-hole. Forcing your kids to show that kind of affection when they don't want to can cause resentment towards the people forcing them to do so. He's still super little and unfiltered, meaning that they act on themselves instead of other people. He enjoys cuddling with mom more, so he doesn't want to cuddle with dad. And I'm sure the same thing goes for wrestling. You can't force your kid to show affection in a way that doesn't make them comfortable. I hope that made sense. Either way, not the a-hole. One of the worst things you can do as a parent, outside whole other level abuse, is to force a child to hug/kiss anyone. Not the a-hole.
Am I the a-hole for canceling the family trip because my stepson damaged my plants? I grow indoor plants and keep them around the house, whether by the kitchen window or out on the front porch. I have a variety of plants like lily, aloe vera, also flowers, and they all require care and attention. It's a hobby of mine, and because I don't own enough space, I just stick to indoor planting. I have a 16-year-old stepson, Sean, who loves to pull all kinds of pranks, and has been trying some weird pranks on me lately. I don't mind it as long as he's happy, and also because nothing is too serious. Just hiding my farming tools/replacing them with damaged ones and so on. It just keeps messing around like any other kid. But days ago, he posted a Facebook video of him spraying cold water on me when I was sleeping. It was embarrassing since he shared it with family. I got mad at him and had him delete it despite him begging me to let him keep it. He kept sulking afterwards and had his mom try to convince me to let him repost the video, but I thought that was a crazy request. Then suddenly, Sean became friendly and asked if he could water my plants. I was glad he asked and gave him the watering can and told him to start with the plants in the kitchen. He was gone for a few minutes, then he got back and started watering all the plants in the house. Later in the evening, I was cleaning my tools and there was a weird smell coming from the watering can. It smelled like bleach. I freaked out and checked my plants, and the same smell was coming from them. I confronted Sean and asked what he watered the plants with. He acted dumb and said nothing, but I found a bottle of bleach in his room, which made me lose my temper. He admitted watering my plants with bleach to get back at me for making him remove the video. I was mortified. I immediately canceled the weekend trip to the national park that he was looking forward to. He started crying, saying it was too much, and that he made a mistake in moments of clouded judgment, but I refused to discuss it. Now my wife feels bad because Sean hasn't been eating well since I canceled the trip, but he damaged my plants and caused me hurt and pain. She thinks an apology was enough, that he is a kid and made a mistake. She wanted me to let it go, but I said canceling the trip is his official punishment. Period. I got called unreasonable and stubborn for this, and that I don't respect her as a parent too, and said taking away the only thing he cares about the most and look forward the most reeks of mistreatment. Sean has this mentality that if he admits doing something wrong, then he'll be forgiven. This isn't how it should be, but his mother thinks admitting to it and apologizing should be the end of it. Now for the top comments. Not today, Hall. That seems like a reasonable punishment for a horrible, hateful act. My wife feels bad because Sean hasn't been eating well since I canceled the trip. He'll get over it. I know, right? He isn't eating well? Who cares? Is the mom really this easily manipulated? He's 2 years from being an adult, and right now he's acting like a remorseless sociopath. I was shocked that stepson was 16. He destroyed Opie's plans, and he did all that because Opie told him to delete a video that he was in and embarrassed him? Him not eating and crying because he couldn't go to the trip, and having the mentality that because I apologized everything is 100% alright is so childish. Opie's wife's probably worse because she allows her kid to do these stuffs without consequences, and is the one who put that mentality in his head. Yes, she's letting him treat an apology like it's a reset button. I guess if Opie apologizes to her and step-kid for canceling the trip, but leaves it cancelled, then everything is back to being great, right? Not today, Hall. That's not a prank. That's petty, hateful property damage. But besides that, he knew what he was doing. At 6? I would have known that was wrong, let alone 16. His actions absolutely should have consequences. I skimmed over the start and missed the age. I figured he was around 10 pulling pranks like that and saw your comment, and had to scroll up to double check. OMG. He needs a reality check. Opie, you're definitely not today, Hall here. Not today, Hall, but your stepson is. His mother needs to stop making excuses for him. He is 16 years old, and she needs to stop enabling his bad behavior. You reacted much better than I would have. He has no respect for you or your possessions. You shouldn't apologize and don't go on the trip. Stand your ground and teach him the lesson that crappy actions have crappy consequences. At 16, he knows better. He knew what he was doing and thought he'd get away with it as usual. Instead of going on the trip, have a family meeting where you set boundaries with both your stepson and his mother. Next story. Am I the a-hole for blasting my mom on Facebook when she posted about my son? Some info. So my parents for years had the same cleaning lady. I was somewhat friendly with her daughter who's the same age, but it didn't become a thing until we were 20. I was back home from college for winter break. We got to spend time together and then I went back to school. Well, that time we spent together resulted in me getting her pregnant. Only I didn't know. She didn't want to tell anyone who it was because she was scared for her mom's job and me possibly rejecting our baby. After I finished college, I tried to reach out to her again, and that's when I found out. My son was 3 at the time. We did a paternity test to find out I was the father. That's when my parents showed their true colors after I told them. I should add that my son's mom's side is Cuban, so he's half Cuban. They always gave subtle racist stuff every now and then, but this was the first I saw them as full-blown racist a-holes. They denied my son being family. They accused my son's mom of being a gold digger, tampering with paternity results to try to trap me into taking care of her kid, as if a court DNA test was gonna lie. Unfortunately, they did fire her mom, but she managed to find work. For all these reasons, I stopped having contact with my parents. It has been 3 years since. I'm with my son's mom now, and we've been living together for a while. Well, a few months ago, I got a surprise visit from my grandma on my dad's side. She finally found out why I'm not around the family anymore, and she wanted to meet her great-grandson. Lucky that she's not like the rest of the family, and she was really mad when I told her the whole story. Then my grandma made lots of changes to her will, and says she wants my son to have something. No coincidence that once this happened, my parents were suddenly wanting to come around, wanting to reconcile. Having a feeling she probably took them out of her will or something, because most of their wealth came from her. And because I'm rejecting them from being in our lives, my mom decided to post a picture of my son on Facebook recently on his 6th birthday. I saw it because my sister sent it to me. It's her venting about not being in her grandson's life, and to tell him happy birthday. Lots of people were giving her sympathy, so I commented, "Remember you said you didn't want a brown baby in the family?" Within that hour, it got some reactions, and my mom ended up deleting the post. Some in our family say I was an a-hole for embarrassing my mom online, where she was only venting her frustration, and so should have left it at that. My mom is mad too for using a mistake she made back then to humiliate her to friends and other family who saw the post, and are now being negative toward her. Hard to feel like I am, when I just called her out when she tried to pull the victim card. Am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. Your mom is the a-hole. So glad you're not falling for her bullcrap about wanting to reconnect. You sound like a great guy. Congratulations to you and your little family. Thank you. They're the best thing to ever happen to me. You are not an a-hole by the holy power of awesome. Dude, kudos to you. And keep that side of the family far away from your kid. Not an a-hole. I'm probably gonna catch hell for this, but your mom went too far. True, she could have had a change of heart, but the timing is pretty suspicious. And trying to get sympathy on social media? That's just pathetic. That's how I see it. After 3 years of total silence and my grandma starts making these changes, and now they want to be part of his life? Man, it's too good. Too good. Not an a-hole. If it was a mistake, which she said in the past, then why hasn't she apologized for it? They haven't made any real strides to welcome your son and mother of your child into the family. I love how you called her out. Exactly. The family's so eager to reestablish contact and pretend everything's fine, yet conveniently haven't apologized, bought gifts, made a sincere attempt to spend time with the child's mother and her family. Trying to rug sweep the past without genuine reflection or remorseful apologetic actions seems suspicious. Now for the next story. Am I the a-hole for refusing to babysit for my soon-to-be former brother-in-law after I had babysat his kids for my sister? My sister ended her 4-year marriage a few weeks ago. There were alarm bells that went off for our family before she married her husband, but she was blinded by love and hope for the future. What came to be of the marriage was a cluster built on lies, grief, and hate. My sister's husband was a widower when they met with 3 kids under 10. He told her his wife had died when the kids were younger than 5. But the truth was that she was dead for less than 8 months, which she found out 2 years ago. He then told her the kids had asked for a mom, and she believed him. The kids did show signs to the contrary, but my sister has always been hard on herself, and I honestly believe she thought it was her, that she wasn't good enough, so she tried like hell to be. She would try to learn about their mom to talk about her, found photos to display, etc. She was committed to the marriage and the kids, but the kids hated her, wished her dead, accused her of hurting them, which was false, and lashed out. My sister insisted they get therapy, and it was after they settled into therapy that the truth came out about their mom not being dead all that long, that the kids hadn't wanted them to get married, and it wasn't because of her. They just wanted no stepmom. At that point, my sister still wanted to make it work, and she said she didn't want to abandon them. But then in October, she told me she was done, that she needed to get her life in order. She needed to find a job, etc., but didn't want to leave the kids alone. I offered to babysit for her if she promised to work toward the end goal of leaving. She did it all, and in May, she told her husband she was done, that she was leaving him and wanted a divorce. She filed a week later with me by her side. She then admitted that her wake-up call was going through a miscarriage, and when her husband told the kids about it, They told them they had prayed she would lose the baby. Anyway, once my sister left, I stopped babysitting because she didn't need me anymore. Her soon-to-be ex reached out and told me the kids needed someone. I was still their aunt, etc. And would I continue looking after them? I said no, and he blew up at me. Told me that kids are innocent. I said those kids were innocent, but that through his actions they were full of hate and did not want anything to do with my family. And I was not dealing with that just for him. He told me I should be ashamed to leave the kids behind, and it stuck in my head. Am I the a-hole? Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. Even without a backstory, you aren't obligated to be anyone's babysitter. And since this guy's such an a-hole, you certainly don't have any motivation to do him a favor. There isn't even any question here. Everyone in this family should go no contact this guy and move forward. Enough energy has been wasted here. Not the a-hole. I'm sorry, but isn't there any daycare system where you live? Nobody works as a nanny? There isn't one soul that would babysit the kids. Not the a-hole. He found your sister really quick, so he wouldn't have to deal with his kids. He needed a free sitter. The fact that she was willing to be intimate with him was a bonus. What a freaking a-hole who don't deserve to be a father. It's a money thing, 100%. Why pay for what you can get for free? You are not the a-hole. Your sister's ex sounds like a negative and controlling person who doesn't like being told no. You did your sister a solid so she could extricate herself from the situation, and you're under no obligation to do anything for your ex-brother-in-law. It was never a you problem that he lacked sufficient childcare, but now it's 100% a him problem. Last story is titled, Am I the a-hole for not inviting my unemployed sister on an expensive annual glamping trip? I, 34 male, met my friend 42 female 15 years ago when we were working for the same company. I was working under her for 3 months before I got promoted to where I became the equivalent to her boss but no longer in the same department. We've remained friends since, and I consider her family, hence sister in title. Since 2012, we've done yearly glamping trips together. The trips are usually expensive, as we rent a cabin and boat, get a ton of alcohol, catered food, firewood, etc. I married 2 years ago, and my sister is very close to my wife now too. My sister was fired June 2020. I thought she was looking for work, so I'd sent her leads for any positions that I came across that fit her work experience. August 2020, she told me she was going to take advantage of the COVID unemployment bonus and just enjoy life, so I stopped sending her any leads on positions that I knew of. March 2021, she even bought herself a really nice kayak. My wife and I had considered buying those a few weeks prior but decided against it due to the price. My birthday was earlier this month. Friend and I decided to go out to an all-you-can-eat hot pot. It was 2 couples, my sister and her son, then my wife and I. Sister decided to order expensive drinks to go with the food, while everyone else shared 2 kettles of tea. When the bill arrived, we asked for itemized split. The server said they don't do itemized split, but can split it evenly in max 4 bills. We accepted. Each bill came out to about $115, with a 20% gratuity added for less than 6 guests. The bills were paid by 2 friends, sister and myself. We headed outside and eventually parted ways. Next day, my wife tells me that my sister complained that I wasn't cognizant of her being unemployed and having to pay the $115 bill, and that my sister would like me to be more aware of her financial situation in the future. I got annoyed at this, since her financial situation is her own fault by still not even looking for work, confirmed her wife earlier, but I didn't verbalize it. I just said fine. A couple days later, when I started planning the annual glamping trip, I sent out the invites, but did not include my sister since I was being cognizant of her financial situation and request. She found out and raised a stink. I told her the trips are expensive, and I'm just being aware of your financial situation. I didn't think I did anything wrong given her request, but she raised another stink, but to the whole group that usually goes. Some friends have reached out to me saying that I'm being unfair by not inviting her just because she isn't working. I brought up her request through my wife, but still some of the friends and my wife think I'm wrong for not inviting her. I'm torn on whether my decision was right. Am I the a-hole for not inviting her? Edit. In the past, she's asked me to pay for her when she was unemployed, and I invited her to anything. Not the a-hole. She can't even pay for her own meal. How could she pay for the trip? She chose to be a freeloader of the government. She wants you to support her too? Lol, teach her a lesson until she is forced to look for a job because there's no such thing as free food. If she wants to take advantage of the government, tell her not to do that to you too. If they forced you to let her come, make it clear that you are not responsible to her share even for a cent. The friends telling you off can share funds for her, lol. A borderline not day haul for me. I'm really struggling with this one. In principle, it seems an a-hole move. But, and it's a huge but, her behavior at the dinner strongly suggests to me that she is wanting to be invited and have everyone else pay her way. The fact she ordered expensive drinks and then complained about you not being cognizant of her financial situation absolutely screams out to me that she was hoping to be able to order expensive stuff and have everyone else pay for it for her. So I am suspecting that if you had invited her, she would have tried to guilt you into paying for her trip as well as your own. I suspect the argument would go something like, "You have to pay for me because I am unemployed and you invited me." We've had those instances in the past when she was unemployed. Friends get together, I'd invite her, and she'd text me from under the table to cover for her since I invited her. Not a haul. Probably going to be an unpopular opinion, but I think after the dinner situation, you should have had a conversation with her. If she recently bought a kayak, how were you supposed to know that she couldn't afford a $110 bill? I would have assumed she couldn't afford a trip too, but still would have sent out an invite and told her, "I understand if you're not financially able to go this year." I bet she would have come up with the money anyway. Personally, she sounds like she could be a user. You're paying for everything but food. Yeah, I guarantee she wasn't going to miss that.
Am I the a-hole for spending money I saved for a trip with my dad when he wanted to include his stepdaughter? Back in February, I, 17 female, asked my dad if we could take a weekend trip for Halloween to this haunted house event the two of us have talked about going to before. He said he wasn't sure he could afford it, but if I saved enough money we could go. He was going to cover some of it too. I actually saved up the money by early September and told him as much. Then he brought up the subject about how cool it would be to include his stepdaughter, 14, and it would be a nice bonding trip for all three of us. He asked me how I felt about that, and I told him I didn't want to include her because I wanted it to be just the two of us. He asked why, and I told him we never do stuff just the two of us anymore. I don't want that time with him. He said he gets plenty of time with his wife, but I said she's not him. That I wanted more time for him and me, not everyone together. Not me and his wife or me and his stepdaughter. He told me okay, it could be just us. Then his wife blabbed because he didn't tell her I had said no. Then his stepdaughter wanted to go, and he told me he couldn't say no to her after that. So I told him to forget it, and bought myself some stuff with the money I had saved. This upset my dad and his wife and his stepdaughter. My dad and his wife told me I responded like a child instead of an almost adult. His stepdaughter said I was so mean. Why would I do that? She was looking forward to spending the weekend with us at the haunted house. I told my dad I saved it for the two of us to go alone, but he has made it clear he doesn't want that time with just me anymore. And since that's how he feels, I am sick and tired of time with his family. That he shouldn't worry because I will be gone soon, and he can spend all the time he wants to with them, and the childish and mean one won't be living here in a few months. He asked why I couldn't just wait and do something else with him. Why spend the money? Why break the plans like that? It's not the first time I have tried to do something with him, and he automatically involved everyone or just his stepdaughter in it. And I even told him I missed hanging out just him and me. It doesn't do anything. I know his wife is upset because her daughter is hurt, because she knows how badly he didn't want her there, and she's also not going now. Am I the a-hole here? Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. You shouldn't be covering any of the cost of this trip at all. And your dad and his wife are being a-holes for downplaying your need for one-on-one time with your father. The money's yours and you're entitled to spend it on what you want. You aren't obligated to participate in a trip with your stepsister, let alone pay for it from your pocket. It's good that you stood your ground and didn't let them guilt trip you or force you. Going to the trip with your 14-year-old can also restrict the scary activities which you'll be able to participate in. You have to take that into account. I'm not quite sure that this place suits a kid, although it depends on her character and endurance. I hope that you're pleased with what you bought. At least it stays. The experience of the haunted house is over. Not a a-hole. Kids in all families are allowed to want one-on-one time with their parents. It is good and healthy and important. And it's even more important in blended families. I'm sorry your dad reacted this way. You were always upfront in your communication. You showed maturity here. Your father is not. I'm sorry your plans were ruined.
Yep, Opie communicated clearly and from the start, and even saved up for it. She's not childish for letting herself get run over by her dad and his wife, and drawing a clear boundary and paying for the honor. Now next time she makes plans she's paying for, they'll know she's not bluffing. Doesn't sound like there will be a next time. Opie sounds tired of trying. Tired, heartbroken, rejected, alone. All words I could use to describe how I feel. Also mad. Next story. Am I the a-hole for not letting my ex and his girlfriend have family time with my son? Every year I take my son to visit his great-grandparents. Usually his dad, / my ex, will be there too during the trip. And they'll spend a lot of alone time together since my ex doesn't see our son as often as I do. The only difference this year is that this time he brought his girlfriend with him. The trip has been a disaster. The first week we were here, my ex wanted to take my son out sailing, and his girlfriend went with them. They came back early and my son was crying so hard he threw up. When I asked my ex what happened, he told me he didn't know that our son kept asking for me, but he told him they would see me when they got home, and he just started crying and wouldn't stop. Since my son has refused to go out anywhere with his dad unless I go too. He won't even stay in the same room as anyone else unless I'm there. I've tried talking to him, but it hasn't helped me understand his behavior. Yesterday, his girlfriend pulled me aside and told me I needed to give them space to have some family time, and that she really wanted my son to like her because my ex made it clear if he doesn't, their relationship wouldn't last. I told her I wouldn't force my son to go alone with them. She said she understood I was overprotective, but that I needed to let his dad have time with him without me hovering. She kept asking me and I finally got annoyed and told her to tell my ex to talk to me if he had a problem. She basically told me that he was my ex's son too, and that she knew it must be hard for me to see him move on. Lol, but that I was being selfish and acting jealous. She's been giving me dirty looks ever since. Am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. Something really messed up happened for your son to react the way he did. If I were you, I'd get some counseling for him if he keeps refusing to tell you what happened. As far as the girlfriend is concerned, she needs to shut up and stop forcing your child to like her. That's not how it works, and it's her problem to deal with if your ex breaks up with her. Completely agree. Something happened. My mama gut can feel it through Reddit. I don't even have kids, and I can still tell there's a strong problem with ex's girlfriend, not just a kid being whiny. Either they told him they were going to be a family / girlfriend as his new mom, and the idea of such a big change distressed a poor kid, or he was yelled at or physically punished for something, and probably told not to tell. Nothing happened, he just cried until he puked for no reason. Doesn't make sense. Not today home, but you would be if you don't get to the root of what happened to your son that day. Crying enough to throw up? There was some abuse. Do not rug sweep. Do not talk to the girlfriend. Talk to a lawyer, or at the very least a child psychologist. Something happened. Something bad, and your son either feels responsible for what happened, or is in fear of saying anything because someone threatened either him or you. Your kid gets upset enough to barf. That is kind of a visual that something happened on a sailboat that has him not wanting to be alone with his dad or anyone else. I am thinking that new girlfriend was pushing pretty hard to get the kiddo to like her and become his new mom, and he took that badly. I could be terribly wrong about that, and you will probably never find out exactly what happened. But kid got scared and now has separation anxiety. Girlfriend is only acting in her own self-interest and could care less about your kid, except she has to get the kid to like her or she is out. I don't know what the deal is with the ex. He sounds like he might actually be good for your son, but he is acting all kind of crazy about this. The best thing is to give your son plenty of leeway to understand that nobody's taking him away from you. Nobody's taking your place, and he is in a safe spot when he is around other relatives and friends. Next story is titled, Am I the a-hole for excluding my nephew from my son's birthday party? My brother, his wife, and 5-year-old son, nephew, been living at my parents' house since 2019 because of financial issues. My nephew is spoiled. He misbehaves and gets away with everything. Throws epic temper tantrums if things don't go his way. I have 8-year-old son, and every year when his birthday party is over and everyone gets ready to go home, my nephew would collect the gifts my son received. I throw a tantrum till we'll let him go home with them. My sister-in-law would spend an hour complaining about their financial situation and try to convince me to let my nephew keep all the gifts because he saw them. I tried to hide them in another room, but my nephew got access. I suggested making a list of the toys my son received, so my brother and sister-in-law would buy similar stuff for my nephew. but they'd end up leaving with them. My son would feel devastated and sad afterwards. Not just that, but in a matter of a week, we'd visit my parents' house and see most of the toys destroyed. This year, as my son's 9th birthday rolled around, my husband straightforward said, "Listen, I don't want what happened in the past couple of years to happen again. It's time to put an end to your brother and his wife's enablement. Your nephew shouldn't be invited if you don't want issues at a party. I'm just letting you know that if they bring him anyway, I'm taking the party over to my parents' house 3 hours away." So I called my brother and let him know that he either leaves his son at home and attend my son's birthday with his wife, or not attend if he didn't want to. He hung up, then called again in a few minutes and was livid, asking if I was serious about what I said about excluding a son from his cousin's birthday. And I said a reason for that is because of my nephew's misbehavior. He laughed, saying, "What's misbehavior? He is a kid, for Christ's sake. Go ahead and name one kid who doesn't misbehave." I said that what his son does, which is taking my son's birthday gifts, then crying and yelling his way into leaving with them, was not fair, because those gifts were given to him, and he shouldn't be guilted into giving them away on his birthday. My brother started talking about a struggle to buy his kid new toys, and said to him that I should encourage the kids to share. I said no, because everyone deserves to receive gifts, and not be expected to share or give them away. I said he and his wife are welcome to attend, but my nephew isn't. He first begged and promised he won't let his son touch anything, but then got angry and said he was appalled, completely appalled by my coldness and cruelty to exclude my nephew like that. He said his son understands what's going on, and once it tells him his aunt excluded him from his cousin's birthday party, I shouldn't act surprised, because neither he or his son will forget how I treated them, then hung up. Mom roasted me about my decision, saying I'm causing emotional damage over a few gifts. She and Dad wanted me to apologize and invite my brother's family. "I'm sorry. You've allowed them to just take your son's presents in the past? What? How can you let your son down so badly? You should have stopped them, threatened to call the police, and followed through if they still took them. Also, you shouldn't have invited your brother and wife to come without their son. I fully understand not inviting the son, but at that point, you just disinvited them all. Did you really think they were gonna leave their kid with a sitter while going to a kid's party he wasn't invited to? Your brother and his wife suck. I feel deeply sorry for their son because they are doing him a great disservice, and they shouldn't be stealing from you. Your parents suck for enabling their behavior and expecting you to suck it up. You suck because in past years you did just suck it up, and you and your husband allowed your son to suffer. Everyone sucks here. This. Your son is not a hole, but everyone else is. Everyone sucks here. I can't believe all these adults ever allowed this to happen once, let alone for years. Your poor son. Birthday ruined year after year, and all the adults just let it happen. This. I can't imagine someone acting entitled to my child's birthday gifts, and me just giving in instead of being a grown-up and saying no. And for this to happen for years before the parents ended it, absolutely everyone sucks here besides the birthday kid. You're the a-hole for ever allowing this to happen to your son on his birthday. Right? Or at least everyone sucks here. I could never imagine allowing someone to take my kid's birthday presents away from them on their birthday just because a 3 or 4-year-old was having a temper tantrum. Kids that age have temper tantrums all the time. They don't know better. The idea that the only two possible options are either the nephew is allowed to take the birthday presents home, or the nephew doesn't come to the party at all is so bizarre to me. Last story. Am I the a-hole for fighting my ex and changing our custody agreement? I, 28 male, have been a single dad to 2 kids, 6 male and 4 female, for the last 2 years. My ex-girlfriend, Kate, 27 female, is the mother of my children but has not been present in their lives for the last 2 years. She spent the last 2 years in either jail or rehab due to her addiction, heroin. When Kate and I started dating, I knew she used, but I was young and dumb and in love and didn't use my best judgment. She got pregnant young, and to her credit, she stopped using completely and was a doting, loving mother. After she got pregnant with our second, we got engaged and were planning a wedding for a year after the birth. But after the birth of our daughter, everything changed. For the first 6 months or so, things were good and we were a happy family. But then Kate started going out with old friends, telling me she felt like she was losing who she was and needed to realize that she was also an independent person and not just a mother. I agreed that she needed to socialize and have a life outside of our family, but I was wary about the people she was hanging around with.
and expressed my concern to her. She assured me that she had put that part of her life behind her, and she just wanted to be around friends again. Well, Kate started using again and got herself put in jail. She got out and went to rehab, but relapsed shortly after and went to jail again, this time for 12 months. During that time, I broke off our engagement and petitioned the court for full custody of our kids, and it was granted. We moved a couple towns away to get a fresh start, and my kids are now thriving in their new schools, and I have a better paying job. Now, Kate is out of jail and is living in a halfway house. She's working and getting an apartment, and has told me she wants to be part of her kids' lives again, and mentioned she wants partial custody. She said she was hoping to avoid too much drama in the courts and asked for my support on it. I told her I would fight her tooth and nail to keep full custody until she can prove to me that she isn't going to mess up again. I told her I will allow her to see her kids under my supervision and on my terms until the court tells me otherwise. She gave me a sob story about how much she's changed and that she would never jeopardize her relationship with her kids again. But I told her all that talk doesn't mean a thing to me because I have zero trust in her. She called me an a-hole for depriving her of a relationship with her kids, and I told her she did that to herself. She said I can't permanently blame her for the mistakes she's made in the past, and I told her that she has a long road to gain back enough of my trust for me to even consider supporting partial custody, and that until the court tells me otherwise, I'm fighting for full custody. I'm getting a lot of grief from her family and even my family about it. They all think I should give her a chance, since she's their mother, as if that somehow erases the fact that she's been gone for 2 years. You need a lawyer, not Reddit. I have one, and have been working with them to be as prepared as I can be. I just keep hearing so many versions of, but she's their mother from both her family and even mine. Her family I can kind of understand, but hearing it from a mom and aunts is what is making me question myself. Like, to them it's so easy to overlook all the BS just because she gave birth to the kids. She may be their mother, but relapsing twice clearly shows that she loves drugs more. If she wants partial custody, then she can and should prove it. Because as their father, I'm not putting the children at risk over a third relapse. Absolutely do not relent. She's an addict, and I would need to see years of being clean before I'd ever consider partial custody. She even recognized that this isn't about her. It's about the well-being of the kids. Maybe that will finally motivate her to get clean. I'm getting a lot of grief from her family and even my family about it. They all think I should give her a chance since she's their mother. And I am their father, the one who has been there every day of their lives. This decision is in the best interest of my children. Not the a-hole. Addicts are masters of manipulation, and there's no way to know if she's truly doing better without the intervention of the court.